Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Canal Algérie's Midnight 30 Bulletin. To the headlines. The President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, conducts a cabinet reshuffle. The President of the Republic receives the Chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, Valentina Matviyenko, who conveyed an official invitation from his Russian counterpart to visit Russia and reiterated her country's support to Algeria's accession to the BRICS. Army General Said Chingriha, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, supervises the execution of a tactical live ammunition exercise entitled Asifa Tiririn 2023 during the second day of his visit to the 6th Military Region. The Pegasus large-scale spying scandal still hunts down in Makhzen, with the victims interviewed by the European Parliament's Committee of Inquiry. Welcome again. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, conducted on Thursday, the 16th of March 2023, corresponding to the 23rd Shaban 1444 in the Hijri date, a cabinet's reshuffle in accordance with the decree number 23-119, and after consulting the Prime Minister, the following ladies and gentlemen were appointed. Ahmed Ataf as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Brahim Murad as the Minister of Interior, Local Collectivities and Territory Planning, Abdurrashid Tabbi as the Minister of Justice, Keeper of the Seals, Laziz Fayed, Minister of Finance, Mohammed Arqab as the Minister of Energy and Mines, Laider Biga as the Minister of War, Veterans and Rights Holders, Yusuf Bilmahdi as the Minister of Religious Affairs and Waqfs, Abdel Hakim Bilabed as the Minister of National Education, Kamal Bidari as the Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Yassine Mirabi as the Minister of Vocational Training and Education, Soraya Mouloudi as the Minister of Culture and Arts, Abdurrahman Hamad as the Minister of Youth and Sports, Maryam Ben Miloud as the Minister of Digitization and Statistics, Karim Bibitriki as the Minister of Post and Telecommunications, Kautar Kriku as the Minister of National Solidarity, Family and Women's Affairs, Ali Aoun as the Minister of Pharmaceutical Industry, Mohammed Abdel Hafid Hanni as the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohammed Tariq Bilaribi as the Minister of Housing, Urban Planning and the City, Tayyib Zitouni as the Minister of Trade and Promotion of Exports, Mohammed Bouslimani as the Minister of Communication, Lakhdar Rakhlouk as the Minister of Public Works and Basic Infrastructures, Taha Drbal as the Minister of Water Resources, Youssef Shurfa as the Minister of Transport, Mukhtar Didouche as the Minister of Tourism and Handicrafts, Abdel Haq Saihi as the Minister of Health, Faisal bin Talib as the Minister of Labor, Employment and Social Security, Basma Azwar as the Minister of the Relations with the Parliament, Faiza Dahlab as the Minister of the Environment and Renewable Energies, Ahmed Bidani as the Minister of Fisheries and Fisheries Products, Yassine Al-Mahdi Walid as the Minister of Knowledge Economy, Startups and Microenterprises, Yahya Bukhari as Secretary General of the Government. Additionally, the President of the Republic appointed both Abdelaziz Khalaf as Minister of State, Advisor to the President of the Republic, and Mohammed Nadir Al-Arbawi as Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency of the Republic.
Mohammed Bouslimani وزيرا للاتصال.
While Kamal Razik and Hussein Sharhabil were called for other functions. The President of the Republic received on Thursday the Chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, Valentina Matviyenko. From the Algerian side, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Saleh Goujil, previous Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency of the Republic, the Minister of State, Advisor to the President of the Republic, Abdelaziz Khalaf, in addition to the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ammar Billani, were present. And from the Russian side, the Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Algeria, Valerian Shuvayev, was present. Following the reception, the chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, Valentina Matviyenko, made the following statement.
уважаемые коллеги, только что завершилась очень...
يا زملاء الكرام أجرينا المباحثات
We held extensive talks with the President of the Republic I am very honored to be received an audience to raise bilateral issues of common interest. We reviewed many international and regional issues. The President of the Republic knows bilateral relations in details, especially those related to the different areas of cooperation. He has his own vision on the international situation. I delivered to the President of the Republic a message from his Russian counterpart, officially inviting him to carry out a visit to the Russian Federation, as well as another official invitation to participate at the second Russian-African Summit. To Russia, Algeria is a reliable and very important partner in the African continent. We maintain important relations in the commercial and economic fields. I extended to President Tebboune my sincere thanks for Algeria's weighted position with regards to events on the regional and international levels, and for his commitment to good relations with the Russian Federation. It is important for us to preserve our relations within this context. We have great opportunities to diversify our relations, starting with the sector of energy, transportation, agriculture, construction of infrastructures, education, culture, and the pharmaceutical industry. We aspire to achieve important projects for the benefit of the two parties. Our cooperation is not against a third country, but we want to serve our interests and our relations through this cooperation. The bilateral relations between our two countries has an important role in the stability and the balance of the world energy market. We cooperate intensively within the OPEC Plus and in the Forum of Gas Exporting Countries. As you know, Algeria wants to join the BRICS, and in Russia we support this process. We share with Algeria the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of countries and the right of peoples to self-determination. Russia and Algeria support the principle of a multipolar world, more just and democratic, a true solid foundation for our cooperation to various international bodies, in particular the UN. I came out of my meeting with the President of the Republic with a great impression, which confirms my conviction that throughout the world there are politicians with whom it will be possible to build a new world that is more democratic and fair.
من اللقاء مع السيد الرئيس وأنا أكدت من جديد أن هناك ساسة كبار في العالم لسه موجودين بفضلهم ممكن بناء سوي على عالم أكثر ديمقراطية وعدالة وشكرا.
The chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation was also received by the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Saleh Guji. The bilateral discussion took place in the presence of several members of the Council of the Nation. Additionally, the chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation was received by the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali. The chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation observed a minute of silence before the memorial commemorating the martyrs of the glorious Liberation Revolution. And laid the wreath of flowers at the Martyrs Sanctuary in the capital, Algiers. To later visit the National Museum of Al-Mujahid, where she received comprehensive explanations on the different eras of Algeria. At the end, the chairwoman of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation signed the guest book of the museum. On the second day of his visit to the 6th Military Region, the Army General Saeed Chingriha, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, supervised on Thursday at the level of the operational sector of Ingizam the execution of a tactical exercise with live ammunition entitled Asifa Tiririn 2023. Rania Al-Bahri has the details.
The General of the Army followed in the company of Major General Muhammad Ajroud, Commander of the 6th Military Region. A presentation made by the Commander of the Operational Sector in Engizam relating to the general idea and the stages of progress of the exercise. At the level of the shooting range of the same operational sector, the Army General closely followed the combat operations carried out by the land and air units involved. These actions were characterized by the high professionalism during all stages of the exercise and by a tactical and operational level, which confirms the rigor in the conduct of operations in terms of planning and execution and reflects the skills of the executives in terms of setting up and conducting the various combat operations, as well as the know-how and capacity of the personnel to master the various weapon systems and equipments provided, thus contributing to achieving the set goals.
لحدودنا الوطنية.
This tactical exercise with live ammunition aims to check the compatibility of units of this operational sector, but also to train the commands and staffs in the fields of planning, preparation, organization, and the execution of operations under real battlefield conditions.
لتصاب الأهداف بدقة عالية. وثلاث غرض تأمين المهمات المسندة من شهدائنا الأبرار الذين ضحوا بأعز وأنفس ما يملكون والمرصعة بأسمى معاني الوفاء والبطولة والتضحية. لحماية مقاتلتين أخرتين بتوجيه دائم ومتواصل.
At the end, the Army General congratulated the personnel of the units that took part in this exercise for the efforts made for the combat preparation during the year 2022-2023, as well as during the various stages of preparation and execution, which was crowned by convincing results translated by the precision of the shootings with the various weapons and the coordination between the units. The General of the Army urged all the personnel to take advantage of the results obtained in the development of the operational performance of the Battle Corps of the National People's Army. Finally, the Army General inspected the military formations and units that took part in this exercise.
The Air Force Command organized on Wednesday at the National Army Club in Beni Messous in the 1st Military Region a national forum entitled The Role of Air Assets in Fighting Forest Fires Operations Prospect. The meeting, which was inaugurated by Major General Mohammed Al-Araba, commander of the Air Forces, brought together all actors in the field of firefighting, such as executives in the Helicopters Department of the Air Force Command, representatives of the Civil Defense Corps, General Directorate of Forests, Algerian Space Agency, National Agency for Dams and Transfers, National Office for Meteorology, as well as representatives of some national and even international bodies. This forum included several lectures in which the role of air means and how to organize them during forest fighting operations were highlighted, as well as how to use satellite capabilities in the formation of ground-to-air during the management of these operations. The Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman supervised at the International Center of Conferences the kickoff of the procedures of the Forum of Food Security in Durham Wheat, held under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, organized by the Council of Algerian Economic Renewal. During his speech, Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman harked back on the strategy of the country to assure food security. Let's have a listen.
لاحظتم جميعا في شهر جويلية من سنة 2000.
You have all noticed that in July 2022, the state concretized the commitments of the President of the Republic through the inauguration of the National Seed Bank. Efforts are continuing for the completion of the National Gene Bank before the end of June 2023. This is a big step that Algeria is crossing for the first time since independence, and an important element for Algeria's food independence and strategic security. It is necessary to ensure the support for production by setting up the storage infrastructures necessary for this purpose. The Algerian state has decided to double the storage capacities towards the end of the year 2023.
The Pegasus case is still making headlines in Europe. By interrogating the French journalists who investigated this affair, European parliamentarians exposed this scandal by asking the right questions. Report by Afaf Bilhoushet, commentary by Manal Ammari.
The hypervigilance that we are required to have because of these cyber surveillance systems are a form of violence and hindrance to the free exercise of our profession. The voice of Rosa Moussaoui represents that of all the victims targeted by the Pegasus software. a scandal revealed by the internal journalistic investigation carried out by the consortium of the Forbidden Stories journalists in 2021. We identified the numbers of at least 180 journalists, 600 politicians, about 85 human rights activists, 65 CEOs, and approximately 35,000 phone numbers that we were able to identify. We noticed that the use of subcontractors by the intelligence services might not be new, but now we are assisting the digitization of spying since there is a proliferation of more or less secret companies which offer services because states had those means. Within this framework, the two journalists were interviewed by the European Parliament's Committee of Inquiry, PEGA, to remove any obscurity, while the Omerta seems to be the watchword of European government, with France at their head, even though its president was spied on, thanks to its Zionist allies, on behalf of its Moroccan allies. Could you tell us about the hierarchy of governmental actions following your revelations? The French government is supposed to protect you against these kinds of attacks. In line with what Mr. Stelakovsky asked, do you think that the French state does enough to protect its citizens? If these facts are confirmed, it will be of utmost gravity. And we heard this time and again with the president of the France-Morocco Friendship Group and the Senate, who made the rounds in Moroccan medias and defamation medias related to the palace to explain that it is an unacceptable attack against Morocco and that this investigation is the product of fabrications of journalists hostile to Rabat. The link between this large-scale spying operation and attempts at geopolitical interference that European countries are experiencing were also discussed. According to your investigations and your information, can you draw a link between the use of the spy software by Morocco and the change in Spain's political position regarding Western Sahara? Beyond understanding the facts and their timeline, the two journalists urge parliamentarians to equip Europe with a legal framework to combat these practices.
Morocco is qualified as expansionist and aggressive by a Spanish expert in security. The Spanish official accuses Morocco of waving a network of espionage in Spain, which leads to a real Cold War.
Morocco is an expansionist and aggressive country. These are the statements made by Spanish expert Francisco Bandala, who accuses this country of creating a spy network throughout Spain and of leading a real war of various forms. The security expert affirmed on a Spanish television channel that Morocco benefited from the existence of a certain number of traitors at the highest level of Spanish institutions and political parties to approach and corrupt them in order to comply with Rabat's agendas and support its positions. Since revelations were made on Morocco's usage of the Zionist entity's Pegasus spyware, the Pandora box of the Makhzen's diplomacy was shattered, showcasing Morocco's wickedness and unloyalty in the management of its international relations against a backdrop of corruption and espionage. Pegasus, corruption within the European Parliament, abject lobbying financed to thousands of euros in Western medias. In addition to international and non-governmental organizations, Morocco is in the process of losing all credibility on the international scene.
In France, demonstrators said no to the pension reform raising the retirement age from 62 to 64, which they describe as unfair, while the representatives of the people opposed it in the hemicycle, in a session that was suspended for 2 minutes, according to our correspondent to France, Afaf Belouchet, in this story commented by Rania Bahri.
No one thought that this disobedience climate would migrate to French National Assembly. The social crisis in France is deepening, and the first signs were given this morning as the waste collectors went on strike. The protesters were attacked with tear gas by the police. We cannot bet on the future of our pensions. This reform is also necessary on the basis of Article 49, paragraph 3 of the Constitution. I engage the responsibility of my government. Indeed, the French government turns a deaf ear to the street at the inter-union, which called a few minutes before the vote against this reform. This government and this prime minister are not worthy of our democracy and aren't worthy of our republic. From this announcement, hundreds of demonstrators spontaneously went to the French National Assembly to show their anger, framed by a very impressive security force device. On the political level remains the Constitutional Council, but the street seems to have already opted for another choice.
And with that, tonight's bulletin comes to a close. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.